Assalamu alaikum students. How are you all? I hope you all are fine and safe at your home place. Inshallah. Amin. I'm your teacher Miss Sobia Nas of your subject History Geography. Today we will discuss your next chapter, Weather and Climate of Geography section, second chapter. Let's come to the discussion. I will tell you in short about your chapter topics. First of all, we have to know that what is weather. What is weather? Weather is the state of the atmosphere at a specific time and place with respect to temperature, precipitation, and other factors such as cloudiness. Weather is generated by many forces, some obvious, some not. Warm, humid, air masses blowing in form of oceans, for example, fuel, rains, that produces clouds, rain, or snow. I hope you understand that what is weather. ठीक है? Actually, climatic conditions that vary according to the situation of the atmosphere is your weather. In desert, there may be one day of shower, but this may be the only rain it gets during a year. As we all know that in deserted areas, there will be a less rain throughout a year, or maybe we can say that once in a year it's rain in deserted areas. In normal hot warm areas, it's according to the climatic changes, temperature or humidity of that place. Now we will discuss that what is climate. Climate means the usual condition of temperature, humidity, atmospheric pressures, wind, rainfall, and other meteorological elements in an area of the Earth's surface for a long time. The composite or generally prevailing weather conditions of a region as temperature, air pressure, humidity, precipitation, sunshine, cloudiness, and winds throughout the year, averaged over a series of years, a region of area characterized by a given climate to move to a warm climate. The climate of a country is very important. It decides what crops can be grown there and how the people live. As we all know that now, according to climatic situations of any country, like for example, if you take example of Pakistan, so we can say that in Punjab, in some of the areas we can grow crops or we can have irrigation process easily, but some of the areas are there where there is less vegetations or less chances of growing crops. This is all about your climate. Now here question arises that what causes different climates? One of the main reason or factor is temperature. What is temperature? It is affected by distance from the equator. The heat from the sun falls directly on the land within the tropics, whereas because of curvature of the earth, the same amount is spread over large areas as one approaches the poles, thus decreasing the temperature. Now, temperature depends upon the following points which we will discuss now. The first one is distance from the equator. The Earth's atmosphere up to 100 to 300 kilometers is filled with the dust particles and other matter which reflects back some of the sun's heat. For example, hold a piece of cardboard or cloth in front of a fire and then notice the difference when it is taken away towards the poles. The sun's heat has to travel through a long distance of dust laden air so that more heat is deflected away. The second point is altitude, the height of a place above sea level. What is altitude? Temperature decreases naturally about 6.5 degrees Celsius for every 1000 meters vertically upwards. Mount Everest at 8,848 meters would be about 57 degrees colder on the summit than the sea level temperature on the same latitude. As you can see in this slide, the higher we are, the colder it is. जितना हम ऊपर के एरिया पे होंगे उतना ही कोल्ड होगा. Mount Kilimanjaro, 5,200 meters high, is almost right on the equator. Yet its top is covered with snow all year round. बर्फ से ढका रहता है. Less than 100 kilometers away on the plains at about sea level, the average temperature all year round is about 30 degrees centigrade. Your next one is proximity, or you can say nearness to the sea. The temperature of large bodies of water such as seas and oceans does not vary very much as currents, winds, tides, and general movements of water. Keep them stirred up and do not change the temperature 3 to 5 degrees centigrade at most. For places near to the coast, the land heats up rapidly in summer and air above it rises, pulling in Karachi and Lahore in the table in your book, which you can see on page number 10. It's mentioned that Siberia is of course much further north and in the center of a great landmass which cools down very rapidly. Now, people might be interested by the fact that the city of Verkhoyansk in Siberia often has a winter temperature of minus 70 degrees centigrade and a summer one of plus 34 degrees centigrade. The Siberian mining city of Novelsk is said to be even colder. Okay? What does it mean? The temperature of the ocean does not vary much from summer to winter usually. The sea keeps places nearest to the coast cooler in summer and milder in winter than those in the interior of large countries. I hope you all are clear with this heading. Now come to the next one. Ocean currents. What is this? These are far more complex than the two mentioned in the text. There are maps of the main oceans in your book. You can see, okay, or which is Oxford School Atlas for Pakistan. Okay. The main one that affects Pakistan is equatorial counter current, a warm stream which started near the equator and swept northwards along the coast of Pakistan before going down to the tip of the subcontinent into the Bay of Bengal and then southwards to the equator again, where it is reformed and started the cycle again. Now the effect of currents is shown for the Humboldt current cooling. The Gulf Stream warm is about 800 km wide and 640 deep. By the time it reaches Western Europe, the temperature is 5 to 6 degrees above the natural ambient temperature. This keeps the land at about 7 degrees centigrade in January, while Newfoundland on the same latitude but untouched by the Gulf Stream is minus 3 degrees centigrade. In some parts of the world, ocean's currents also affects temperature. The cold from Humboldt current from the Antarctic sweeps up the west coast of South America, keeping countries like Peru, which is well within the tropic, quite cool. Okay? Now, come up with the next heading, that is rainfall. The record rainfall at Cherrapunji at 22.9 meters would cover most skyscrapers if it had all remained on the ground, but of course it soaked into the soil or ran off. Rainfall is perhaps the most would cover most skyscraper if it had all remained on the ground, but of course it soaked into the soil or ran off. Rainfall is perhaps the most critical factor in determining the crops of a place, provided there are no extremes of height above sea level, differences in latitude north or south of the equator. To illustrate a point about aridity, the Atacama Desert in Chile is believed to be the driest place on earth. The author has visited place in the Atacama Desert to see a remote hillside studded with pits, the burial places of Incas who lived here 400 to 500 years ago. Desperately poor local people had dug up the graves hoping to find gold objects, sometimes buried with the corpses. The climate is so dry that hair still cling to the corpses, skulls, and the burial clothes are still wrapped down the bodies left there centuries ago. Now, your next heading is air pressure, or we can call it weight. Air may not seem to have any weight, but it does. यानी you can see that ना हवा का कोई मतलब वेट नहीं होता, बट बज़ाहिर नहीं होता है. Like temperature, air pressure decreases with weight. The air pressure determines the boiling point of liquid water especially. The boiling point of water decreases 1 degree centigrade for every 300 meters vertically, so that on the top of Mount Everest, water would boil at about 71 degrees centigrade instead of 100 degrees at sea level. It would be impossible to boil an egg as the highest temperature that water in an open saucepan would reach would be well below that at which the egg white sets. If you boil it for an hour, the egg would still be liquid. The water would not even be hot enough to make a cup of tea. The air pressure is not steady. Sometimes it presses more heavily on Earth than at other times. The average about 1 kilogram on every square centimeters. When the pressure is high, the air is pushing down on the surface. The weather is usually fine and dry. When the pressure is low, it is usually stormy and wet. Now come to the next one, that is direction of wind. The direction from which the wind usually blows also has an effect on climate. If a place mainly has north winds, it is usually cold. because they blow in from the Arctic or colder regions. The influences climate as winds which blow from most of the for most of the year in the northern hemisphere from the north mean cool climates while those from the south usually means warm climates. Winds blowing mostly from across ocean or sea normally means a wet climate, while those that blow over land masses cause a dry climate. Winds can cause a microclimates land on the lee side of mountains sheltered from prevailing winds may have a dry climate. If the winds are normally rain bearing, land on the lee side of mountains with prevailing northerly winds may have a much milder climate. I hope I hope you all understand the chapter really well. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.